Welcome, dear students. Today we will begin the history chapter number 3, Kinship, Caste and Class. The slides are taken from hsslive. So watch the video. You can pause in between and note down the important information. Theme 3, Kinship, Caste and Class of Early Societies, 600 BCE to 600 CE. The changes in political and economic life between 600 BCE and 600 CE influenced early Indian societies. This chapter discusses issues in social history including class, caste, kinship, and gender. It also introduces how textual traditions have been used by historians to reconstruct social history. We all know that whenever we are studying about the rulers and their way of administration, it is always called political history. And whenever we are dealing with the trades and production part, then it is called economic history. But whenever we are dealing with kinship, means relatives, whenever we are dealing with social groupings of the people, class groupings of the people, categories of different types of people, all these come in the heading of social history. So today, whatever social structure in our country is there, whatever social structure we are following in our country, in our Indian culture, from where did it all begin? Where are its roots? Do we find whatever social stratification which we are practicing, did it exist in the past? So if we want to understand, then we have to go back to history and check it from certain evidences. And in this chapter, when we want to understand the class issue, caste issue, kinship issue, marriage issue, gender issue, then we have to consult some ancient texts like Mahabharata. So in this entire chapter, we will be delving into Mahabharata texts and try to understand the social history. Okay, so here comes textual traditions. Historians use textual traditions to understand changes in politics and economics of that time. Okay, some texts laid down norms of social behavior. So here comes the word social behavior. Okay, it means in society there will be different types of groups and each group was expected to perform certain actions. So their social behavior was governed by those divisions. Others describe and occasionally comment on a wide range of social situation and practices. So in textual tradition, we will come across varieties of social situation and practices mentioned in our ancient texts. We can catch a glimpse of some social actors from inscriptions. Social actors means some characters, like in Mahabharata there are countless characters. So when you study all those characters, you understand the social norms and behavior of that time. Each text or inscription was written from the perspective of some social categories. So we need to keep in mind who composed it, and for whom it was composed. Composed here means the text which were written. So number one, who wrote them and for whom it was written. We also need to consider the language of the historical text and ways in which it circulated. We have to understand the language and the way it was circulated. It became popular, how it was made popular. Now, what is the central story of Mahabharata? Well, we all are familiar. I hope we all know. The colossal epic Mahabharata depicts a wide range of social categories and situations. Colossal means very huge, very big, very large. Epic means, okay, it is a type of poetry. Mahabharata depicts wide range of social categories and situations which were in our Indian culture. Mahabharata, like any other epic, contains vivid descriptions of battles, forests, palaces, and settlements. Vivid description means varieties, in detail. The central story of Mahabharata is about two sets of warring cousins. We know who were those two cousins. It describes a feud over land and power. The whole battle is over property and power. Who will be the next? These were the Kauravas and the Pandavas, who belonged to a single ruling family of Kurus, a lineage dominating over one of the Janapadas. You know, in the past chapter we read about Mahajanapadas and Janapadas. So among all those, there was one Janapada called Kuru. So Kaurav and Pandav, they belong to this family Kuru. And it was a conflict between them. So the conflict ended in a battle in which the Pandavas emerged victorious. And after that, patrilineal succession was proclaimed. So here one important word is coming, patrilineal succession. We will read about that, understand it in later slides. So we should understand the central story of Mahabharata is the battle or the feud or the dispute between two cousins, families of cousins, and the dispute was over land and power. Suthankar and the critical edition of the Mahabharata. Mr. V.S. Suthankar was a Sanskrit scholar of India. He undertook a project work of preparing a critical edition of the Mahabharata and appointed a team of various Sanskrit scholars. So, V.S. Suthankar took the responsibility of compiling Mahabharata in a systematic way, because there were dozens of versions of Mahabharata available not only in our country but outside of our country also. So V.S. Suthankar took the responsibility. He called all the Sanskrit scholars and said, we will compile this in a systematic way. The team collected Sanskrit manuscripts of text written in various scripts from different parts of the country. So Mahabharata is not only written in Sanskrit, it was written in different languages. Various scripts were there. So this team took the responsibility of collecting all those scripts and began to understand, translate and interpret them. They compared the verses from each manuscript. Every single shloka, every single episode was compared from different versions of Mahabharata, and they came to the final conclusion. Finally, they selected the verses that appeared common to most versions. So this is how the present Mahabharata which we find available. Remember, behind it there is a hard work of V.S. Suthankar and his team, which has compiled Mahabharata in a systematic way and presented to us. So Suthankar and the critical edition of Mahabharata. Here you can see on the meaning of the Mahabharata. This is how V.S. Suthankar and his team composed Mahabharata in a very beautiful, systematic way. Suthankar, and his team published these verses in several volumes in 13,000 pages. It's a huge task. There were several common elements in Sanskrit versions of the story. Common elements where there were similarities, so they understood and they compiled it together. Enormous regional variations were also found. At the one side, common elements were there. On the other side, some regional variations were there. Stories were quite different. So they have, as a team, to sit down and finalize what should be actually printed in their work. The variations of Mahabharata reflect the complex process that shaped social histories through dialogues between the dominant traditions and resilient local ideas and practices, characterized by movements of conflict as well as consensus. So these variations which they discovered, there also they analyzed why these variations came, and they correlated it with the social histories of that particular regional area. Okay, so this is how Suthankar and his team came out with a critical edition of Mahabharata.